Welcome to Energising Life with AKR Fitness. I'm Jase, and I am joined, as always, Mike.
Hello.
You're trying to think of something different again.
Yeah.
And
I'm
Lynsey.
here.
Hello.
Nice. Hey, we made it. This is it. This is a roundup show podcast, season 1. It's in the bag. Just give me your thoughts and your feelings on it. How have you found it? What have you learned? You learned anything?
I think to start with, the nerves were real.
Yeah.
It's completely out of my comfort zone. But I think I found my stride with it. Started to enjoy it, relax a little bit, and yeah, every episode felt better.
Took
Felt
that
good.
first step in.
I think it felt really good to get our knowledge out to the world as well, not just in the arch, which was nice.
Mike, what's your thoughts and feelings on it?
Yeah, I think it's a good parallel for us taking our first steps out of our comfort zone into something new is kind of a theme almost. We've spoken about it's hard to do something new. It's normal to feel anxious and uncomfortable, and you don't need to be great to start. You need to start to be great, and we'll look to improve as podcasters as the seasons go on. So, but no, I think it's been good.
I think there's been a lot of really good episodes and a lot of really important messages. I think we just summarise these messages. We'll go through them a little bit, one by one, what we took or what the listeners could take from each episode. Episode 1 was obviously the introductions, a little bit about us and how we're all failed footballers. We didn't quite make it that far. Sorry.
He still thinks he can.
What we are is those guys that have the chip on the shoulder about I could have.
It wasn't for that.
I let go of that.
And episode 2 was the Energy is Everything episode and how fitness generates life's energy. Any takeaways, or is that it? that's the takeaway, right?
I think it captures that. I think hopefully, to the listeners who have been with us and listened to them, all the shows in order, there's a journey that we're trying to take you on in this first season, and it starts with that concept of fitness generates life's energy. So I think if someone's listening to this and they're in a rut, in a bad place, stuck in a hole, getting depressed, stressed, or whatever, it might sound almost flippant to say it, but it's like you get up and move, go for a walk.
Yeah.
There are basics. I think I mentioned in one of them that go through the basics. Do you have a consistent sleep-wake routine? Are you moving your body? Are you getting some fresh air? Are you getting some nourishment into your body, in terms of what you eat? And I think if you're not doing that, what a place to start, because you've got so much on the table that you can just start to feel a little bit better, and it doesn't need to be
You don't have to do
mammoth
all
effort.
of those at once.
No.
So you just pick
Pick
one.
something.
Pick something to start.
And it's not open for debate that this stuff works. It's it's proven that just look after yourself a little bit better if you can, and you'll get the rewards.
Yeah, absolutely. And that leads us into episode number 2, which was the journey is the goal.
It's episode 3, babe.
Episode 3, that's what I said. That leads us to episode 3, which was the journey is the goal. So
So I guess on that theme, it doesn't need to be all or nothing, which is what everybody typically, or most people, do when they first try to get into fitness. They feel like they have to do, meet a certain standard. I think Lynsey said it in her story, didn't she? About
she almost had to be good to go to the gym.
Yeah, am I good enough to go to the gym? Which is people talk about getting in shape to go to the gym, and it's a real shame. And I think one thing Liz learned when she came in, she mentioned in that first strategy session, one thing we tried to do here is make it doable, make it achievable right from day one to build the confidence.
Yeah, mini wins.
I can do this.
With,
yeah.
Small steps, small steps, small
I can do
steps.
this. So it doesn't need to be everything. I think we spoke later on about the nutrition. You don't need to overhaul your entire diet. You can pick one aspect, work on one skill. You can start moving by just taking steps to walk.
It's just consistently doing something over time and not having that stop-start cycle.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, big important point from that show, was fitness is an infinite game.
Yeah.
There is no end. Liz, again, reinforced this point. She says, it's not like I'm going to be there for a year and then complete it.
Yeah.
There's always something next. So therefore, your approach, you want to pick something that you can sort of keep doing.
And
You
enjoy.
might change,
Yeah, the enjoyment in it.
Said to people when they come into the gym, look, you're not always necessarily going to be into, lifting weights or doing the type of exercise we do here. Maybe you do this for a year and then you go and take up badminton, or you get involved in something else. But accept that you've always got to do something. We spoke about walking the dog. Human animals need movement.
Yeah, and another thing Liz had mentioned was that she had obviously built these habits for the down days, and she also said that they were normal. Like, you have to expect these. So that was episode 4, if I remember right, episode 4. And that was stuff that was normal. And demotivation, not feeling good, not being bothered to go and train. That's fine.
Preparing for your worst self.
Yeah, preparing for your worst self. And we had a few great tips on that episode. They were, Mike. Oh, you see, he doesn't like that, does he?
Hey, I'm ready. I just wasn't expecting the question.
Either were we.
Well, I think just to go back a little step is when you realise it's an infinite game, then there's a recognition is it cannot always be perfect conditions.
No.
Because, everybody knows life happens, there's ups and downs, there's turmoil. Again, a few good examples from Liz in her life. So preparing for that worst version of you, not even just accepting that there are going to be harder times, but like recognising them as normal and as part of the journey. And so I think the tools we shared were implementation intentions. We call them if-then plans. So
I've still not learned to say that.
If Liz spoke about when her puppy Benjamin came along, so if I'm getting a new puppy and I need to put everything on hold, well, then I'm going to lean on my habits a little bit more to still have that structure. I'm going to make sure after a break from the gym, it's the first thing is to get back in. I always know after like a holiday or a little break from the gym, that first session back is the key.
It's so important.
The longer you wait,
Yeah.
the harder it gets.
Yeah. Another thing Liz mentioned was bringing her gym kit in before she came to work. So, if she brings her gym kit in, then she's more likely to come in and train.
Well, she has to come back in.
Yeah, she has to come back because her stuff's
Yeah, and do you know what she said that, so even if I'm walking home from work and it's raining and I've had a bad day and I'm tired, I have to go in. So she's played a game on herself.
Yeah.
And it's a good way of putting it sometimes is set up a game you can win. And I think
Well, she couldn't lose that because every time she walks home, she walks past the gym, so she has to walk through that door.
Yeah, great example. The other one was the WLWL, the when
I think
life
we
works
started calling
list.
it Wibble.
Wibble, I forgot about that. Yeah. That was a new
Is that
one.
where we were at that point?
Like Sliddles.
Sliddles and Wibbles. So yeah, when life works list.
In short, think of a time when life has
Works.
worked. So a time when you felt on track with your health and fitness. Hopefully there is a time that you can think of like that. And then consider what were the 3 to 5 most simple, most basic things you were doing that helped things work. And the sort of things we often hear are stuff like doing the food shop.
Shopping, moving on a daily basis.
Making sure you get some sleep.
Yeah, scheduling your workouts.
Yeah.
Schedule
I think
it in.
a good one as well, personally, I don't think I mentioned this in the last one, but it's preparing the next day by writing it down on a piece of paper, just knowing what you're doing and ticking it off. It's always nice.
You always say, Mike, schedule it in and do it anyway. It's one of your favourites.
Yeah, stole that from someone else as well. Plan it in and do it anyway.
Plan it in and do it anyway.
Yeah, there's another line that stolen from someone else that, to be fair, I don't use this one too often because it sounds sometimes lacking in empathy, but it's adults make a plan and stick to it. Children do what feels good.
Yeah.
And okay, that might sound a little bit harsh, a little bit like tough love, but I think, schedule in. I think we can fool ourselves so easily, our brains fool ourselves, and I think a simple way for anyone who does exercise, I can almost guarantee you'll have had this experience when you're really tired and you nearly didn't do your workout. Your brain was convincing you not to do it.
You were in a battle.
Yeah, you maybe battled for 45 minutes, and you're like, okay, here I go. And you go in and have an amazing session.
Yeah.
And you're like, geez, I almost...
So glad I did that.
Yeah.
And I almost skipped it. But your brain was telling you everything. There's the book, The War of Art. Stephen Pressfield. He sort of personifies this idea of resistance as this force. So whenever you're trying to move from like a, in a positive direction, there's this weird sort of force, resistance, that kind of holds you back. And I remember he said something like, resistance will argue like the best lawyer in the land.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It'll point a gun at you like a stick-up artist or whatever, and it'll say anything to get a deal. And as soon as you make the deal with resistance, it'll double cross you as soon as your back is turned. So when you decide I'm going to...
That's so good.
I'm going to...
That's so good.
So it's like, oh, you deserve a day off from your workout today. You're too tired, or there's not enough time. Don't do it.
Yeah, you take it off, and then what'd you take it off for?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
What did you do that for? Like,
That was a mistake.
yeah.
And you know what's a really interesting thing? So I've said, like, your brain can fool yourself. You can get fooled by your own brain. But it's the smarter you are, the more you can fool yourself.
Yeah.
Because the smarter you are, you can make even better arguments and even better justifications about why not to do your workout today, or why not this, or why not that. But again, when you do, that resistance double crosses you again. So
I'll be having words with my resistance.
yeah, and I think it's sometimes it's good. It's like the other quite famous book, The Chimp Paradox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost treating it as, I know you, brain,
Hello,
or chimp, or
How you
give it a
doing?
name. I know what's going on here. You're just trying to
I
convince
see
me.
what's happening.
Yeah, realise it.
But I understand that I can feel a little bit tired. I can feel a little bit below par, or stressed out, or whatever. But I can follow through anyway, because that's surface emotion. And what I'm talking about is my values. Like I used to say, am I the sort of person that gets my workout done, or am I not?
Yeah, I think Stephen Pressfield wrote a few good ones. He wrote the Turning Pro, and he talks about this: the difference between an amateur and a pro is that the professional turns up and does it anyway, even though conditions aren't perfect. They know they just need to build that consistency on it, where the amateur thinks everything has to be perfect in order to do it. So just building that consistency in things, which kind of leads us into exercise number 5, episode number 5, which was
Coach mode.
just getting started with exercise.
Can I just want to pull back on that turning pro point, because there was a bit from Lizzie's story, or maybe I should have saved that till we talk more about that episode. But and I remember it, not just from her story, but from when it happened. Is she said that when she broke her ankle, and it was almost like that was the moment she turned pro.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because that was the first real big sort of setback she'd had. So
Yeah, it felt to me, listening to the story, that she didn't dwell on it. She used it as an opportunity to focus on other things.
Yeah, and
It's
then
when it all came together for her, though. She didn't realise that she had to fall back on that. It was there for her to fall back on.
yeah. So I think the point is, like, when life's okay, it's easy to see why you can get. Liz spoke a lot about getting into the habits and the routines that made life work for her. And so when you're in that flow, great. And then she had this experience where, like, her world was shaking, and it's like, oh no, what's going to happen? And then she realised that actually, she could much of the habit and routine. Okay, she couldn't exercise in the same way, but much of the other things, the sleep she spoke about, the food stuff, she could keep doing
And keep stepping forward with.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was this period of, I don't know the exact word, but where she was shaken up. Her world was shaken up by this injury. And then there was a realization that actually, I don't need conditions to be perfect in order for me to still sort of stay on track, at least to some extent. Yeah. And then there was something else that happened after, maybe it was with the dog, or maybe it was something else.
Grieving.
Where she didn't go through that same, she wasn't shaking it up as much about it.
Because she knew she had something
Because she knew it didn't need to be perfect. And I think that's the difference between the beginner. The beginner is the all or nothing person who feels that I need perfect conditions, and I need, like Liz said, to be at a certain level in order to do this. Whereas the person who's turned pro or who's developing, they realize that actually imperfect conditions are inevitable, but I can wait. I think Liz even said this, I can scale back. I might not be doing
gym work,
this level of that activity, but I can scale it back and I can keep going at least to some extent. I think that was an important point to reinforce.
Yeah. So just moving on to the fifth episode, which was getting started with exercise. Again, there were some good tips and tricks in there. Do you remember a few of those?
Just move a little bit.
Get started.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
What was the other one? Baby steps.
I think we had 4.
Yeah, we had 4. Doability.
Make it doable.
The matrix.
So impact versus doability. I think that was the first one. So whatever you're doing, make it doable. It might not necessarily be as high an impact activity, because there's no point in doing the perfect thing if
you can't do
it lasts a day. Yeah. So consistency over intensity. Number 2, was move more.
Yeah, move more. So go out for a walk. Put in an iPod.
Well, I've not heard that in a while.
Jesus. Put in some music. Just take a step out the front door. Just take a step out the front door.
Walking is underrated.
Not over.
Underrated. Not over. Number 3 was learn some basic movement patterns.
Yeah. So number 2, I think, distinguishing between movement and exercise. So if you are a little bit intimidated about getting started with exercise, just move more.
Just move more.
So walking, stretching, and then if you do want to take that step in exercise, and it's not the default of running, nothing wrong with running or any of the other cardio options, but a great place is learning the basic movement patterns, because that opens up a world of exercises that you can do safely.
So, even if that means sort of just getting a coach just to run you through the patterns so you know them safely.
Foundations of it,
foundations is good. And then number 4.
Should we mention what the patterns are again?
Oh yeah,
Lynsey?
the patterns.
Yeah, so squatting, so basically sitting down and standing up, hinging, bending over, and pushing and pulling.
And that's typically, I guess we can say, in the strategy session that we have at AKR, which is a free initial session that people come down, they get to meet us, see the facility. But that's typically what you do is you take
coach
people in the
them through
gym
that.
and you coach them through those basic movements.
Those basic movements. So when they have their first session, they've got an understanding of them, and then we build from there.
And everyone can do them, and everyone can learn them on the first day.
Yeah.
It's simple stuff, but I think
really important.
Most people, everybody benefit from a little bit of coaching, and what they get is they get more from their exercise from doing that, I think.
Yeah. And the 4th one, environment.
Environment and social support. Yeah.
So finding a place or a thing that you enjoy, and maybe getting a wee training buddy.
Yeah, training buddy.
Again, Liz was pretty strong on. I think when the last question you asked her was the do something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
So that ties into environment stuff. Like, again, so many people trying to stick to some sort of exercise regime that actually they don't like, and that doesn't bode well on the impact versus doability scale either.
Yeah.
You're not going to last long doing it, are you?
Yeah. So put yourself.
It's almost the same with diets that rely on deprivation and all this different notion of you can't have this. It's going to fail sooner or later when you no longer want to deprive yourself of it. That's that impact and doability. Again, you can run, if you run everything through that impact and doability matrix, you're going to find things.
You'll soon find out what's right and what's not.
I think, do you know what? Just to latch on to that, there's a theme in fitness that has frustrated me for a long time, and it's this idea that in order to get, and we're not talking about athletes or whatever, we're talking about the sort of people that we train here as, regular people just looking to feel a bit better, have a bit more energy in their life.
Without being a health freak.
Without being a health freak. And that's the point, because there's this idea that the path to being fit and healthy is through sacrificing and stressing and suffering all the time. And that's the thing. It's like, dragging yourself to the gym to feel, inadequate and do some sort of workout you hate and getting a sweat on, doing some sort of sacrificial diet where you swear off chocolate and alcohol, and you're stuffing raw celery and carrot sticks down your
whole lettuce.
Lettuce and tomato sauce.
But you know what I mean? I think that's what we're trying to say is, like, rather than the sprint through that, see who can suffer the most for the shortest period of time to get the most dramatic result for the holiday, It's like, let's let go of all that stressing and suffering and sacrificing. Let's try and make it easier to show up, more enjoyable, smaller steps, but far, far more sustainable, so that, like Liz, 6 years later, you're still on the horse and you're actually
through all life's peaks and troughs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings us to episode 6, which was kind of a similar conversation that we're having now, but rather than talking about exercise, we spoke about nutrition, which we gave some useful tips for that. Number one
was choose better labels.
Choose better labels. We did it in a different order last time. It was Lynsey that said that. It threw me off.
Choose better labels. So rather than the good and bad dichotomy, splitting the food, moralizing the food, consider the properties that the food actually has. So how calorie dense, how nutrient dense, how satiating, and how enjoyable is the food.
Satiating.
And looking at the overall context. So I think zooming out is a good point in that, because people zoom right into one particular food and say, is this good or bad?
Yeah.
And we're going to say, zoom out, but not even just to that one meal, not even necessarily to that one day, but what's the context of your week? In your week, there's scope to have, for most people, most active people, scope to enjoy.
I think that's a really important point, because people do just zone in on the day or the meal, and then that's where the labels come from, like you're saying. So zooming all the way out and actually taking the bigger picture. Okay, I know what my week looks like, and I can have that there, and I can have this here, and I won't have that because I know that I'm going out for dinner, and it's it's a madness to think you've had one square of chocolate. So even though you've eaten nothing but vegetables and nutritious foods, and you've maybe had 1,500 calories overall, madness to think that
that's
it's all blown. But that's and I don't mean that in a disparaging way, because that's where I was, and that's where people are with it.
Point number 2.
Eat in specific meal windows.
Consistent times.
Yeah,
consistent meal times, just to give a bit of structure.
Have you when we spoke about this, I didn't ask it, it blew past me, but have you both experienced this benefit of eating in meal times? Like, you've experienced it personally? Have you experienced it talking to members during the reviews?
Yeah, not personally, but I think like I said, it works really well. If you are working with somebody that doesn't eat for the entire day, or is chaotic with their eating, it just gives them that section. Okay, this you can eat here, not here. You can eat here, not here, and it gives a bit of the structure of the day.
Just a quick, would you recommend sort of maybe setting an alarm on your phone, or just sort of writing down the actual times? How do you make that easier?
I always recommend putting it in the calendar. So you can, we all look at our calendars every day, and if you do use a calendar,
just to build that routine,
just so it's there, you can see it's lunch.
I think the important point, certainly for me, is not to make it feel rigid or feel like a rule, because like with diets, when people feel controlled, sooner or later they rebel. And so if I had an alarm that said I have to eat now, I'm probably going to rebel against that. I know what I'm like, but it's just like,
don't tell me what to do.
Exactly.
I'm not eating.
I'm not eating at all today.
I'm just not going to eat. But so I think having again, it's just the one about being an adult is just having okay, well, I'm going to eat my breakfast roughly at this time, my lunch roughly at this time. It could be a window, because maybe a meeting comes up or whatever, and my evening meal. And if you don't want to eat breakfast, fine, don't eat breakfast, but you're still at some point breaking your fast. There is a first meal of the day,
That's technically a breakfast.
Technically, even if it's later on. But so it's just, it's not about the details or the magic of a certain time that you're going to eat. It's just planning so that you've got some structure, rather than being really haphazard and grazing all throughout the day, or picking up random things.
Yeah. Tip number 3 was practice skills, not diets. That was a good one. I spoke about when I was learning guitar. If I didn't practice that week, then I just didn't practice it that week. And then when I started practicing again, I didn't forget everything, and I just picked up where I left off. Any experiences on that? Thoughts?
I think with the skill practice, again, just working with members over the years, putting in, setting a clock to see, how long does it actually take me to eat a meal, rather than rush through it, and the next thing you know, you've overeaten.
Just tune
into your body, listen to your body. Do you need to eat more? Probably not.
Yeah. I think the bigger picture on this is that everything is a skill, you know, and I think when you can, it's the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. Yeah. So let's take drawing, right? I might not be the world's best drawer right now, and okay, I never will be, but can I improve at drawing? Well, yeah. And maybe if I got a teacher and put in X amount of practice a few times a week, I could improve at that. And I think when you can consider so much of health and wellness a skill, then you can be far more self-compassionate with yourself. You know, it's not like, I'm a loser because I can't do this, or I'm always, or even like behaviors around food, like you can change. You can change and you can improve and you can practice and you can work on it. And I think as much as the practice is important, it's the mentality shift of that, you know, that self-compassionate way of, okay, I recognize I'm pretty poor at eating the right amount of food at the end of the day when I'm tired. Okay, like, well, what can I do? Do I need to eat a bit more at lunchtime? Do I need to come up with other ways? Do I need to practice the skill of tuning in and realizing I'm not hungry, I'm lonely at that point, or I'm fed up, or, you know? Yeah. And another one, Liz said at the end, I think she said, like, identifying areas. What was her point she would give to someone? One was do what you're passionate about, and the other one was
areas that you need to work on.
Yeah,
and then work
find a
with
way to love it.
And you can improve it stuff. I think that's the one thing which is a bit crazy. We've never actually mentioned what AKR stands for, but it's an acronym, just a little mantra, and it stands for always keep reaching, and it just sums up this growth mindset. And if you can go around your life and consider absolutely everything a skill, that means you can practice and improve it, all of it.
Absolutely. Point number 4 was, I think it was my favourite one, it was eat like an adult, but we kind of switched it. It was eat like a child, or eat like a child.
Feed yourself like a child.
Eat like an adult.
As if you were a child you're looking after.
Yeah.
Making sure you're being clever. You're not being crazy. You know, you can have some sweets when you want some sweets. You won't have sweets all day. You won't allow a kid to have sweets all day because you're an adult. You make that executive decision. Any other thoughts on that one?
I think just looking at it as a balanced meal on the plate. Like, look at the plate, and is it what you want to put in your body? Would you feed that to your child?
Is it helpful or unhelpful?
I'll tell you a little anecdote on this one. I remember, you know, I probably was, at least by age, an adult at this time. I remember I was living at home, and I was feeling really unwell, burnt out, or, you know, something. And I'd gone in and like poured myself this, like, made this bowl, this monstrosity, and there was like cereal, and I think I had biscuits, and I put honey on top, and I was like,
I know what I'm having for lunch.
I just like, you know, like I feel dreadful, and I just put something together. My mum came, I had the spoon in the bowl, just, pulling it up to my face, and my mum's like, Michael, what are you doing? There's some homemade soup in the fridge. You know, you'll feel better. And that's the point. It's like the realizing that, and I remember, lifting the spoon up to my mouth and going, damn it, she's right.
I'll have that for my pudding.
I've got the option to be an adult here. And I think you said it on one of them, Jase, it's like at any point you can say, well, here's where I'm at, but what's the next best thing?
Yeah.
So maybe you've overeaten, or maybe you've skipped your workout or had a bad day. Well, what's the next best thing I can do? Can I go for a walk now? Can I eat an apple? Can I,
Yeah.
And then we rounded it off with Lynsey. So Lynsey's a breath of fresh air. She's a whirlwind. She had some super great points in there. I mean, if anything, just listen to that interview with her, and you'll get a lot of benefit.
It just pulled it all together, really, everything that we've said throughout all the podcasts, and I really enjoyed the scaffolding analogy. It was incredible that she's built these habits up, and when she feels in life that it's not quite going the way she wants to, she just leans on these habits that she's built over time, and it just felt so good to hear that.
They were just the basic stuff for her that just kept her automatic.
Walking, eating, bedtime routine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think like part of the reason I mean, I'm sure it'll be obvious to the listener, but part of the reason we asked Liz on was because she's been on this journey that we've described in season 1, and she's taken all the steps that we're talking about, and she kind of embodies it all. But she's not a unique case, and I think as we continue this, we'll get more members on to sort of share their journeys. There'll be differences, but also I think a lot of similarities.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it for season 1. I'd like to thank you, Mike, first for allowing the podcast and for being on our show. Lynsey, I want to thank you as well for joining me and helping me make fun of Mike. It's been a pleasure doing the podcast with you both. Hopefully in season 2, what we've got to look forward to.
I think we'll get some more members on. We'll maybe dive deeper into some of the skill practices and share a bit more on that.
There you go, folks. That's it. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you've got any questions for us, we'd love to hear them. Do we have an email address we can?
Yeah, I think by the time this airs, we will. Just let's go with podcast@akrfitness.com. So any questions, comments, topics, anything like that, drop us an email.
We will get to them. It might not be straight away, but we will get to them. We'll definitely give them an answer on, I was going to say live on air, but we'll get an answer to them.
We'll respond.
We'll respond. So don't feel discouraged if it's not your question wasn't answered in the first episode. I think we'll just wrap it up there. That's it. So thank you again, folks, for listening. If you got it this far, thank you so much. Please like, share, review, rate us.
Tell a friend.
Tell a friend, phone a friend, smile to a friend. And we'll see you in season 2. See ya.
Bye.